map will go away. I hit the wrong button. It'll go away in a minute. So I did have an image set up to where if I wanted to turn the video off, and I'm trying to use the tablet while driving. Probably because of the dots, or the sound's probably pretty not great because I don't have the wireless mic set up, so it's just the sound inside the car. Trying it right now. The thing is I don't have the windshield wiper pump fluid, so but I just did it. But it actually did work pretty good. The wiper blades are still pretty decent. Let me know if it clears up. Okay, cool. Sweet. Right on. Alright, I'm just gonna let it ride. I want to see how long it actually stays. So I started it roughly at, we'll just say 8 o'clock. Now I've got the bonded internet connection. I'd be kind of curious to see if the stream stays going the whole entire ride. Cool. All right. See ya. Bye.
Canva, the thing that makes anything a thing.
Welcome to Sephora. I'm looking for a perfume that's not too perfumey. I got you.
Serum moisturizer or moisturizer serum.
Let's get into layering.
My concealer is making me look worse.
Sounds like the wrong shade. Let's get you matched.
There's only one store that really gets what you're going for. Get Beauty.
Pleasure. It's great to be, again, great to be with you.
All right. Well, Louis, look, I always love talking to you because you're one of the relatively few people that I interview whose focus is really primarily markets outside of the U.S. But one of the things that I appreciate very much about you is that you spend most of your time outside of the U.S. So you really have a very, on the ground view of a lot of these markets. And in our past couple conversations, you have been pretty optimistic about where the opportunity lies, meaning the majority of it do you think you see outside the U.S. And as I said there in the intro, past couple of years, international markets actually have beat the S&P. So let me ask you this. Right now, what trends, international or otherwise, are grabbing your attention the most as an investor right now?
So to be honest, the trends internationally are not that different from trends you see in the U.S. I mean, this year, it's very much been a case where if you bought semiconductors, if you own semiconductor stocks, you've had a monster year. And if you didn't, then you didn't. To be honest, it's been that plain simple. And you see this in the divergence within the international markets. So Korea this year has absolutely ripped. And Korea, of course, is extremely heavy on with Samsung Electronic, SK Hynix, obviously Taiwan with TSMC. Japan also has a lot of semiconductors. So North Asia has done exceptionally well. The rest really has done pretty poorly. If you look at year to date, some of the big European markets like Germany and France has been a little lackluster. Hong Kong has been extremely, extremely disappointing. And here there's an interesting divergence between Chinese stocks listed in China that have done well over the past 12 months. Shanghai has done okay, Shenzhen has crushed it, and Hong Kong, which is actually down over the past 12 months. So a divergence, there's a few factors behind this divergence, but one of the biggest factors is that in China you have a fair amount of tech hardware stocks listed, semiconductor names, but other guys in the tech hardware chain, and in Hong Kong you don't. And so it's in that respect, I think, if you look at the U.S. performance this year, if you own software stocks, you've had a miserable year. Just as if you're on healthcare, if you're on staples, and if you own a lot of consumer discretionaries, you've had a pretty miserable year in the U.S. If you own tech hardware stocks, you've laughed all the way to the bank, and you've had a monster year. And I think that trend has been a global trend. So, in the introduction, you said, international stocks have outperformed this year. You strip out the semiconductors, but then again, you strip out the semis. I should do the exercise actually. If you strip out the semis out of the U.S., because in the U.S., semiconductors are now 18% of the index, which is kind of mind blowing, right? I mean, here you have the sector that historically is perhaps one of the most cyclical and most capital intensive sectors. And everybody's like, oh yeah, I can't get enough of this. At a time when essentially the capital intensity of the AI industry, capital intensity of the semiconductor industry would make steel makers blush with embarrassment. The level of capital intensity this is. And I'm not, you look at the Asian markets, you now have 3 stocks in the Asian markets, TSMC, Samsung, Hynix, that almost make up a 30% of the index. So yes, like the Asia MSCI, you could say has outperformed this year, but again, you strip out those 3 semiconductor stocks and you get a very, very different picture.
Okay, so it sounds like kind of the breadth of the international market is not very good, and the breadth of the U.S. market isn't so great either. But is the international market perhaps even more reliant / vulnerable to what happens with semis?
So I think one key difference perhaps between some of the international markets in the U.S. has been the performance of financials. And I spend a lot of time looking at how banks are performing. I like to look at them as a little bit of a leading indicator. At the end of the day, they're the pulsating heart of our system, right? When banks do well, usually the economy does decently because it means money's moving around, banks are making money, it's sort of happy days. And when banks do badly, it's sort of a warning signal. It doesn't mean that the whole system's going to collapse, of course, but it's one of these indicators that people should pay attention to. So I think this year, what's fascinating to me has been the divergence in performance between financials around the world. In that, if you look at Japan, financials have absolutely crushed it. A monster performance by financials again, which makes sense to the extent that you've had a big steepening of the yield curve over there, that you are seeing pick up in capital spending across the board, that the Japanese economy is seeing a lot of fiscal stimulus. There's lots of reasons behind this outperformance. You're also seeing decent performance from Korean financials. Frankly, Chinese financials have also done well. Interestingly, in your part of the world, Canadian financials have crushed it. Canadian financials are having a monster year, which is somewhat, perhaps a little bit counterintuitive, since a lot of people expected them to do badly on the back of the Canadian real estate troubles and the fact that Canada's been essentially flirting with a recession now for the last few quarters. Meanwhile, go south of the border and you look at the U.S., where the economy has been quite strong, where on paper things should be going gangbusters, according to most of the economic data, and the banks really haven't done very much. I mean, it's not been a disaster, don't get me wrong, but it's been sort of sideways trading for both the big banks and the regional banks. So anyway, I think that's one key difference, perhaps, between the U.S. markets today and the global markets, is that when you look at the underbelly, the fact that in most international markets, banks are doing okay gives me a little more comfort.
Okay. Let me go back to the semi/AI trade right now. I don't know what the percentage is internationally, but I just saw a stat the other day that AI and AI-related stocks now comprise 45% of the S&P, not the NASDAQ, but the S&P, right? So it's such a huge part of the market value of the major indices now. It's also a huge part of our GDP growth, right? All the spending the hyperscalers are doing. So to your point, people are jumping on this extremely cyclical bandwagon, like it's just going to be a rocket ride to the moon, right? How concerned are you about what life looks like when the honeymoon is over here on this trade? I mean, maybe it's going to power higher for many more years. It's certainly surprised a lot of people in its strength so far. But, certainly the semi market is very cyclical, right? But also the AI market, it's a technology revolution. We've been through several of these. We kind of know how they work, where you basically don't know how high is, and so you build until you realize, in retrospect, we overbuilt, right? And so we kind of have this very probable kind of day of reckoning ahead. And I was just reading something yesterday that was really fascinating about, say, unlike the railroads, right, where we overbuilt the railroads, we overbuilt track, and then we had dormant track for a number of years, and then the economy kind of caught up with it, right? Same thing with internet, with the dark fiber, right? We had a bunch of dark fiber that finally got used by the second generation. With compute, it's a little bit different because the chips become pretty outdated pretty quickly. And I was reading that the replacement cost of a data center, replacing the chips and everything in there, it's about 2/3 the cost of building the data center in the first place. So there's this maybe slowly dawning realization here that both the life cycle of what we're building right now, even though we're spending tons of money on it, isn't very long, and the cost of upkeep is quite high. So I'm not trying to say this is a fait accompli, but do you worry that at some point the honeymoon is over, and because the markets and the economy of so many of these countries, including the U.S., are so dependent on this trade, might be a hell of a hangover.
Warmer weather calls for a brighter look.
You never know when you've had too much when you've had enough until you've had too much.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And that's the story. That's the story of every boom. You never know when you've had enough until you've had too much. And so yeah, look, I think when you mentioned the broadband boom. If you look at how much money was spent on broadband in the late 1990s, basically from 94 to 2000. It comes out to about in today's dollar. Back then it was $500 billion. In today's dollar, it's about $900 billion.
Yeah.
Which
is what we're going to spend just this year in the U.S.
Well, actually, I think it's more.
Maybe. Okay.
I think, according to McKinsey, between this year and 2030, we're supposed to spend $6.7 trillion in AI, which means that to justify this kind of spending, and given the depreciation rate you just cited.
Yo.
I meant, like, could you actually understand the podcast I had on?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Okay.
Yeah, totally clear.
Well, you'll hear our phone call come through here in a second if you're still watching it. But, well, because I was going to magnetize the microphone to the speaker, but I'm like, that might be too loud. Not like it really matters. I was just curious. Cool. Right on.
Yeah, I'm just now listening to you talking to the other side. Got the other speaker, yeah. Sounds fine.
Cool. Thanks, dude.
Yeah, all right.
Bye.
And given the depreciation rate you just highlighted, and given the profit margins that you could assume, etc., you need the AI industry to generate roughly $2 trillion a year of revenue. I mean, ballpark to justify this kind of capex. Not only are we nowhere near that, we need $2 trillion a year every year between now and 2030. Not only are we nowhere near that, but to put things in context, the whole advertising industry, so from the Google and Facebook ads to the shirt on, the logo on the Manchester United shirts, the ad on the side of the bus, to the ad in the FT, the global advertising industry is roughly $1 trillion a year. So you need the AI, like right now, to start making sense, to start making twice the annual revenue of the global advertising industry. Like the numbers, to your point, are just so big. You look at AI capex, it basically accounted for more than 3/4 of the increase in GDP growth. So I think that's the big challenge right now. Is that on the one hand, we are very clearly in a market that is massively driven by FOMO, by the fear of missing out. You have a market that's pretty concentrated. You have semiconductors that have moved from being 10% of the S&P 500 to 18% of the S&P 500, and roughly the same amounts for the world MSCI. Excuse me, in the past 2 years, as I think everyone, especially people working in the financial industry, get to use these products and think, oh my God, these are awesome. Here's Claude, here's ChatGPT. I can do so much with it. How do I get exposure to it in my portfolio? And there've been very few ways to do that, right? To get exposure. So you fall back on the semiconductors. It's like, well, it's a boom. I'll buy the picks and shovels. And by the way, when you go back to the picks and shovels of the $900 billion that was spent in the late 90s, so that's roughly 1/7 of what we need to spend today, or what we're supposed to spend today. And a lot of companies did go bust on that. You'll remember Nortel Networks. You'll remember Lucent. Those were Global Crossing. Those were picks and shovels guys. Lucent was a pick and shovels guy. And not to mention all the pets.com, etc. So, look, I think the story of every boom and bust is a story of FOMO, of excitement, and we don't get excited about crappy products. The reason everybody got excited about, don't worry, the hair looks great. we did, the story. The reason we got so excited about the internet was that it was very exciting, and to this day, the stories back in the late '90s of how internet was going to change the way we were going to work, how the internet was going to change the way we were going to entertain ourselves, how we were going to shop, how we were going to relate to each other. All that turned out to be true, and perhaps in a much bigger way than anybody expected. But along the way, still a lot of people went bust, and it's the history of every capital cycle. So the big challenge, I think, right now for any investor is to look at this boom and decide, okay, this AI thing may be very much for real, but where are we in this capex cycles? Do the numbers still make sense? And if you think the numbers don't make sense, and I think you think the numbers are getting very stretched, I think the numbers are getting very stretched, then it makes sense you need to have the discipline to not let the FOMO take over. You need to have to say, you know what, good for some people, they're getting rich, great for them. You need to have, and it's this is the part of the cycle that can be quite painful. And you need to have the discipline to say, you know what, there's other stories out there. There's other great stories on which I can make money without all this, all of this uncertainty and frankly massive risk in being crowded. Because I think when you look at an investment, you have to look at it through four prisms. You have to look at the fundamentals. And today there's no doubt that the fundamentals on AI are exciting, but the numbers look very stretched. You have to look at it through momentum. And here, the momentum is undeniably very strong. You have to look at the investor positioning. And here the investor positioning looks crowded. And then finally, you look at valuations, and this is the big challenge today, is the valuations make no sense. Now, if you look at asset classes through these four prisms, there's other places that make sense, frankly. Other parts of the market that are doing decently. We mentioned the financials in a lot of markets that are performing very well. So that's not a bad place to redeploy capital. I think I've argued with you in the past, and I've written a lot of pieces in the past couple of years highlighting that there's a lot, very exciting changes occurring all across Latin America. Political change, corporate governance changes, growth of local pension funds, all of which argue for a re-rating of local assets that are deeply, deeply undervalued. Today we have the results of the Colombian election. It's yet another election after Salvador, after Argentina, after Bolivia, after Ecuador, after Chile, after Peru. Now we have Colombia with a pretty pronounced rightward shift. And policies are likely to be much more market supportive. So there's others. I guess the point I'm making is there's other stories but the AI story. And by the time we get to the big IPOs, to the every front, every headline in the newspaper being about AI, the question is, what edge do I bring to the table? Like, what do I know that the market doesn't know? And this isn't to say that this thing can't keep going on, but what you're essentially playing is a momentum game. And then the question has to be, what hedge do I have in this momentum game? And personally, I'm not sure I have.
So I'm curious on that. That was actually a great framework. I really liked your four prisms that you went through. So Louis Goff, Goff Call, but Louis Goff. What is he saying right now from an investing standpoint? Is it time to start walking away from the AI trade because it's so stretched, and there could be this big hangover, and we don't know when it's going to be, but the party's gone on for long enough that we don't have an edge now, and it's time to get out, get into some of these other markets? Are you still playing it halfway?
So it's funny because, look, this is a debate we have internally, and that I have been losing internally. So if the manager of our Asian Opportunities Fund, Alfred Ho, has had a monster year. He's been playing the semiconductor stocks. I've been very wary about it. He's been right, and I've been wrong. To answer your question, I would have been wary about AI much earlier, and I have been worrying. So I'm not sure I'm the right guy to ask about that the AI trade, because I'm not sure I've had a lot of added value on this for the past year. What I do think there is I think there's tremendous opportunities in other parts of the market that are less talked about, that are less crowded, where the value is much more attractive, and where perhaps you're going to get just a lot less heartbreak down the road.
Okay. And you've noted a few for us, like Latin, South America, financials, etc. Let me ask you this. I'm not trying to, sow concern, but I'll just ask it directly. Can the AI complex go through a correction without the world getting kind of pulled into a global recession?
Oh, that's a great question. And that's the one I'm struggling with right now. Our framework, we start off with the idea that economic activity is driven by changes in, asset prices are driven by changes in economic activity and inflation. And that this essentially gives you four scenarios. You have the deflationary boom. Now, the deflationary boom is the natural state of capitalism. Every entrepreneur, every CEO wakes up every morning thinking, how can I produce more with less, right? This is the task of every businessman. How do I produce more with fewer workers, less energy, less copper, less energy?
Did you know that passive fixed income ETFs only capture about 50%?
Exactly. It's the promise of technology in general. It's the promise of capitalism, period.
Sure. Yeah.
It's what capitalism is great at producing.
Always gets better. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the natural state. But I would say the natural state of democracies is the inflationary boom. Because every politician, or almost every politician, wakes up every morning thinking, how can I promise more to voters without having to pay for it?
Yeah.
And so the natural state of capitalism is the deflationary boom. The natural state of democracies is the inflationary boom. And then every now and then, you get an inflationary bust, which is typically when energy prices spike, for whatever reason. When energy prices spike, you get an inflationary bust because economic activity is energy transformed. And then, every now and then, which gets me to your question, you get a deflationary bust. And a deflationary bust is a period when essentially you've had too much capex, the system got too excited about something, an invention or a new territory being discovered or something, and the banks have essentially gone bust. You get a deflationary bust when the banks have been too far above their skis, put up too much credit, and they start getting bust. This is why, going back to something I was saying earlier, I spend a lot of time looking at how banks are behaving. Both banks, how much are they lending, but also their relative performance. Because when you start to see banks meaningfully underperform, that's a warning sign. So to answer your question right now, are we in a phase where there's too much excitement, where there's too much capital spending, where all the capex is going to be done, is going to be found out to not have the returns that was expected, which is exactly the conditions you need to get to a deflationary bust? Mm-hmm. I think the answer is yes. I think the maths, as we were saying, the numbers are so big that the scope for deflationary bust is there. Then you get to the next question. Have the banks been funding?
Some podcasts, when you're listening to them, the commercial interruption is such a different volume. It's so annoying. I'm also not liking this episode. It's kind of boring me. currently on Interstate 40, heading west. I don't know what I'm near right now. I don't think I've gotten to Statesville yet. I'm coming up on it. I wonder what the legalities are. If I'm allowed to, I mean, nobody's watching the stream. Might as well try it anyways, and turn on Spotify and listen to some music. Because there has been a song that's been in my mind for the past couple of days. Play it anyways.
Whiskey River, take my mind. Don't let her memory torture me. Whiskey River, don't run dry. All I got, take care of me. Whiskey River, take my mind. Don't let her memory torture me. Whiskey River, don't run.
I don't think I like that version. Looks like I'm losing reception on the personal phone. There it goes.
Whiskey River, take my mind.
Much better, faster.
Don't let her memory torture me. Whiskey River, don't run dry. You're all I got, take care of me. Whiskey River, take my mind. Don't let her memory torture me. Whiskey River, don't run dry. You're all I got, take care of me.
Yeah, what's up, dude? Nada. I just called to with that phone call. I mean, I know the stream's still running, but I get these random warnings on the YouTube live control panel. It doesn't say the stream stopped. I have no idea what it means. But I'll know how long this stream stayed connected by when I stop the stream, by seeing how long the stream actually is. I mean, it's been running for an hour and 20 minutes so far. Coming in Statesville, and this stupid trucker sitting in the frickin' fast lane, thinking he's also stuck behind some other wanker up there holding everybody up. Coming into Hickory. Gonna stop in about 40 minutes, get some gas, grab some food out of the fridge in the back. Yeah, Brooks Furniture Express semi-truck driver is an asshole. Probably a fake licensed CDL driver. Shouldn't even be on the road. About time you changed lanes. Been stuck there for like 10 minutes. Go around the truck, you put your foot in the gas a little bit. All right, let's go back to podcasts. This one seems interesting. It's the Side Hustle Show with the dude I don't remember, and the $8,000 a month time travel side hustle. Alright, whatever the hell that means.
All right, Chandler, I gotta show you this because it's a wild business that's actually being run as a side project to the guy's main thing. This is basically a cake dropshipping service. It's called Daymaker.com, which is apparently doing around $4,000 a day in revenue. It says like 30% margins somewhere in here. So call it even just $1,000 a day in profit, sending cakes to prospects. So its main customer base is sales teams, sales organizations.
I already heard about the cake thing.
Cut through the clutter of cold email, cold DMs, and get something that's going to stand out. And this is a really, really interesting business where I initially thought the guy ran a bakery, but no, he like just builds relationships with bakeries and has the bakeries send him out and just play as middleman.
I love this for two reasons. One is zig when everybody else zags. I mean, this is what we've been teaching with book stuff for over a decade now, is send a physical copy to people in the mail and watch your lead sales and referrals go up. This is just obviously probably a more clever way to do it, and because it's branded specifically to them, or there's a message specific to them or their company. But then I think the other reason I like this is because I think when it comes to a side hustle or your business, the most profitable ones are the ones that sell revenue, sell money, or sell people. And so if you think about it, this is selling revenue. This is not a bakery. He's selling revenue. And so if you can skim some off the top of the revenue that he's driving, well then yeah, you just now turn that into the highest leverage cake that exists versus just a race to the bottom in a commodity of selling baked goods.
Yeah, it says he's got a 35% conversion rate from cake delivery to booked meetings compared with, I don't know, 1% from cold email or cold calling.
Yeah.
Right? It's this almost this law of reciprocity at work. Like, well, if you went through the trouble to send me this custom cake, I guess I owe it to myself to at least hear you out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's got to be a high average order value enough to justify this.
Oh, totally. It's $80 a cake.
Yeah, but you think what's your cost per meeting or what's your cost per customer? So, I mean, at $80 a cake, that ain't bad, because if you got a 33% conversion rate, well, then that means that, you know,
That's an expensive freaking cake.
back of the napkin math, that's roughly $240 a meeting.
Yeah. So you better be selling something with a high ticket.
$240 a meeting, and then if you're converting, let's say 1 out of 4 of those, that's $1,000 a customer. So I mean, as long as your customers are worth more than $5,000, let's call it, the math probably pencils.
Yeah, totally. And so it seems like we can even go after really enterprise sales, right? Like how are we going to reach the decision makers in a really unique way?
Yeah.
We should know Chandler's here. Chandler is, it's been 12 years since your first appearance on the Side Hustle Show, back when we were both just babies in this business. Since then, self-publishing school has evolved into selfpublishing.com, where you've helped thousands of people realize their dream of writing and publishing a book and built an 8-figure business in the process. Now, did you ever do any of this kind of outbound for self-publishing?
Oh, we've done some crazy outbound. I was thinking about it, and it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'm already bored with that. Let's listen to the Rebel Capitalist Show. Don't like all these episodes. A lot of doom and gloom-ish. I don't know. Kind of like it, kind of don't. But let's see what BlackRock just did. And they did the unthinkable.
Hello, fellow Rebel Capitalists. How do you screw that up? You do it every single day. Hello, fellow Rebel Capitalists. Hope you're well. All right, so BlackRock is not really in the news other than the private credits and the redemptions, the redemption debacle, let's say, and halting redemptions. And what we have discovered just today, meaning me, is a connection between BlackRock, private credit, and MicroStrategy. So you guys know, I mean, just from paying attention, MicroStrategy is collapsing. In fact, let's do a screen share. Let's go over and get that right in front of us so we know exactly what's going on. So we've got, I mean, look at this chart. It's hard to believe. 1 year ago, less than 1 year ago, MicroStrategy was trading at $455 a share. And today they're trading at $85. They're down almost 78%. Well, since the all-time high, they're probably down more than 80%. But in the last 12 months, we're down almost 78%. Now, what's absolutely staggering, shocking, unbelievable is their money market fund. At least that's how they pitch it. This STRC stretch it's supposed to have this incredible dividend, and they want to keep the value right around par. You know, they want this range between 101 and 99, and that's currently trading at 75. In other words, a 25% discount to par. Now, I know a lot of you may be saying to yourself, okay, George, I get what's happening in the strategy. I've been watching the news, and it's, I don't know if they're going to go bust, but they're definitely not in a good position. And whoever was holding or purchased these preferred shares at 100 cents on the dollar, they got big problems. And oh, by the way, I was listening to a podcast today, and I always try to get alternative opinions.
That's a cop
In
passing
my
you up.
opinion, not that MicroStrategy is going to zero or they're going bust or anything like that. Because at the end of the day, I mean, they got over 800,000 Bitcoin on the balance sheet, so they ain't going bust. But that doesn't mean that these preferreds will go back up to par. And that doesn't mean that the equity won't continue to go down. And those are two different things. So, long story short, I was listening to a podcast that's all about strategy and all about, you know, Michael Saylor and Stretch and everything. And this morning they played a clip from Saylor, which honestly I didn't realize. But oddly enough, they were playing it as though you should be bullish on Stretch. I don't know why they played this clip. Maybe the editor put that in there without the guy knowing or something. But it's basically this interview with Michael Saylor, where he's talking about the fact that MicroStrategy itself is in zero danger of anything, even when you look at the Stretch preferreds, the yield on them. Why? Because he said at the end of the day, if you look at the fine print, we don't have to pay the dividend. So he's basically, you know, on one hand telling you that it's just like a money market fund, and on the other hand, he's saying, ha 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 ha, if you buy this, you sucker, and we don't necessarily have to pay you, even though we're marketing it as, you know, a competitor to like a U.S. Treasury. So once I did not realize that legally they don't even have to pay this dividend. Like they can sit there and say that they're going to increase it to bring the value back up to par, but at the end of the day, they just say, "Nope, sorry, peace, we're out." I think that's why it's trading at such a massive discount. So why does this matter outside of just strategy and kind of the drama? Why does this matter to BlackRock? Why does this matter to private credit? Ha 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 ha. That's why you tuned into the Rebel Capitalist Show, my friend. That's why you tuned in. Let's go over. See, I've been doing some research here, so believe it or not, for this video. As you can tell, I don't really prepare for these videos at all. Hence me screwing up the intro. But in doing a little bit of research this morning, and I got to give a shout out to this guy on Twitter. I retweeted his tweets, whatever the hell you call it now, and that's what kind of got me onto this or going down this rabbit hole, so to speak. So let's go over to BlackRock's website. Now, a lot of you might not know that BlackRock has ETFs for pretty much everything. And they have an ETF for preferred and income securities. Oh, that's right. That's right. And this particular fund has, what is that, $13 billion in assets? So not a huge fund compared to most of BlackRock's, but this is significant. And I think what you have to do is look at this as a proxy for the overall market. And then what I think is likely happening with private credit. Not just looking at this as a $13 billion fund in and of itself. right? This is just a representation of the ecosystem and representation of what all these clowns were doing when the tide was in. But now the tide has gone out and is continuing to go out. So, I mean, look at this, these key facts. So 13 billion in assets, very good daily volume, really good daily volume. And if we go down to the characteristics, you'll see the trailing 12-month yield is 5.54%. Wow, that's fantastic. But I would highlight the fact that this is as of May 31st, and it is the trailing 12 months. In other words, looking in the rearview mirror. So what I think you'll find interesting, to say the least, is when we look at what their holdings actually are. I mean, how are they getting this incredible 5.54% yield when, let's just say, a 10-year treasury trading at 4.3? Well, I'm glad you asked, because let's go over to their holdings. Whoa, their second largest holding is MicroStrategy. And it isn't necessarily MicroStrategy, they're just using that as a catch-all. It's likely STRC. That would be the same as TRC that is down 25% relative to par. And let's remember that the last time BlackRock reported on that particular ETF was in May. So let's just go back 1 month, and you can see that right around May, they were almost 100 cents on the dollar. And since that time, down 25%. And now you've got Michael, and by the way, they've likely been collecting that 11% or 9 or 8% or whatever it was when BlackRock was buying. They've been collecting that over the last year. So now you have to think about this. You have to say, okay, well, what happens to their ETF? What happens to their balance sheet? If now, I mean, do they even have to mark to market? I don't know. I mean, that's a great question, right? So does this BlackRock fund have to write down that second largest position by 25%? Assuming that it stays right around 75 the next time that BlackRock has to report. And, oh, by the way, if they're just reporting the yield, then what happens if Saylor gets into a pinch here, which he's recently come out and said, and what I'm referring to specifically is he's recently coming out and saying that he doesn't have to pay any dividend if he doesn't want to. So why? Ask yourself the question, why would he pay the dividend? Now, sure, if he doesn't pay it, then he can never go back to our market, probably for these preferreds again. But it keeps him in business. And then you have to ask the question, if he has to make a decision as to whether to sell Bitcoin or whether to not pay the yield, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't pay the yield. And so let's assume for a moment he gets into a position, paints himself into the corner where it looks like he's going, and he doesn't pay the yield. What does that do to BlackRock's 5.5% yield? You see where I'm going with this? Hey guys, if you're watching this video right now, you probably know the stock market, the housing market, pretty much every market is in a massive bubble right now. The Fed is totally out of control and the debts are exploding. You know this doesn't end well. The question is, what do you do? Well, fortunately, I've got the answer. Now, let me be clear. If you're the average retail investor who's watching CNBC and trusting the system, this definitely is not for you. But if you've been sensing there's something wrong and you're looking for clarity for all of the chaos us that Rebel Capitalist Pro is your unfair advantage. What is Rebel Capitalist Pro? It's the private investment community that I have with my good friends Chris Mack and Todd. Private credit. So you guys know what's going on with private credit. And right here in this headline, or right below the headline here, Zero Hedge is talking about BlackRock's private credit fund gates investors again. And this is when they're facing a flood of redemption requests. But it's not just BlackRock, to be fair. It's a lot of these guys, a lot of these funds in the private credit space. And it's saying that their defaults remain at record highs. And this was maybe a week ago. So the bottom line, and you guys know how this works. So the private credit funds, they don't have to disclose any of their holdings. None. So it's just a black box. And you've got to trust them that black box, if they are telling you that it's valued at 100 cents on the dollar, the real value is 100 cents on the dollar. But you don't even know what's in that black box. Like, it could be oceanfront property in Arizona, which I think a lot of it is. And in the news, even within this article, they talk about how the big risk to private credit is software loans. Well, I don't know that it is. Maybe it's that. I think that's 20% of the overall balance sheet in private credit. But I think we have to remember that they lend to subprime auto lenders. I mean, they've been lending to everyone that has a pulse. I mean, it's very similar to what happened during the GFC. But during the GFC, they were lending to just individuals that didn't have a pulse, that wanted to buy 14 homes. Now they're just lending to business. Now they themselves are lending to businesses that don't have a pulse. But think about the position, the predicament they're in right now. Because they're getting all of these redemption requests, right? And they know that they've got a lot of loans on their balance sheet that are not performing. In other words, they're not getting paid. They're in default. They're rolling over the loans. They're paying in kind, which means that instead of making the payments, they're just adding to the principal that the business without a pulse owes the private credit fund, and the investors don't know about them because, again, they don't have to report anything. So let's put yourself in the position. Let's go back 6 months ago. Put yourself in the position where you've got a lot of these loans on your balance sheet going bust. Let's assume for a moment that you are a private credit fund manager. You've got these loans that are going bust. Oh, this is a crazy video, isn't it? I got my phone ringing. I mess up the intro.
Oh, that was my phone.
That's the beauty of doing things live, isn't it? You get to see the unedited, authentic version of George Gammon and his take on private credit, BlackRock, and what's happening with MicroStrategy. Okay, getting back to this here, getting back to the thought experiment. So you are this private credit fund manager. You've got a lot of loans that are not performing, they're not paying you, but you need some sort of cash flow coming in to pay off your existing investors that want out, but you have no more investors coming in. So what are you going to do? Well, wait a minute. Your analyst runs in and says, look, MicroStrategy is paying an 11% dividend. They're paying it monthly. So let's think about this. We have these redemption requests. We have to have, let's say, 5% yield in order not to go bust. We have to have all these things. If we could get an 11% return indefinitely into the future, this would solve a lot of our problems. We could meet redemptions, we could hit our numbers, we could maybe solicit more investors because we're one of the private credit funds that isn't taking risk, even though you can't see what's in the black box. And now, those of you who are really paying attention say, oh, George, they could never do this because this is private credit where they're having to lend money. This is not private equity where they're buying preferred shares or something like that. My response to that would be, so what? Who cares what it's called? Who cares if it's called a private credit fund? You can't see what they own. So to sit there and say that these crooks, these guys that are just selling you oceanfront properties, snake oil salesmen, which is basically what a lot of these private credit fund managers are, to sit there and say that there's absolutely no chance that they would buy these MicroStrategy preferred shares at an 11% dividend when it solves all of their problems because they're not an equity fund, they're a private credit fund. I mean, come on. I mean, how naive can you possibly be? And let's remember, they don't have to tell you what's in the black box. So that black box could be completely full of MicroStrategy, stretch, preferred shares. You don't know that. And they don't have to tell you. So my hypothesis, and I have no proof of this, but my hypothesis is there could be a lot of not just preferreds, but maybe even MicroStrategy equity on the balance sheet of these private credit funds that are out there that are having a lot of problems. So the point is that MicroStrategy is doing this. I think more importantly, the preferreds are doing this. And this would be a silver bullet, or it would have been 6 months ago. Should we assume that there's a 0% probability that a lot of these private credit funds loaded up on stretch, maybe even with leverage, as like a Hail Mary? I would say there's a far higher chance than 0 that that's exactly what happened. Now again, I have no proof of this. All I'm doing is sitting there saying, okay, 6 months ago, if I'm a private credit fund manager and I have no ethics, I have no morals, I have no integrity, right? What would I do to solve my problems? Right here. Right there. And by the way, it wouldn't be just private credit. Like, how about pension funds that are underwater, that have promised their pensioners, basically their liabilities, they have to get like a 7% return. But treasuries are only paying whatever, 4%. You don't think that there's a lot of pension funds out there that loaded up on stretch? I mean, if this goes to, I don't know what the hell stretch. Now, again, the MicroStrategy doesn't have to go out of business for this to have a ripple effect across private credit. And then what does that do to the overall economy? And I mean, could that trigger a GFC? Probably not. You know, and what I'm saying is private credit could, but could strategy itself? Probably not, because I mean, realistically, it's not probably a huge portion of the overall balance sheet. But could it blow a hole? Could it exacerbate the problem? Could it add fuel to the fire? I think the answer is absolutely, unequivocally yes. And right now, I mean, I don't know exactly what's going on, but it seems to me like these stretch shares are basically trading like there's a very high probability that Michael Saylor just rug pulls all these people and is like, yeah, you know, I told you that you're going to get that yield, but you didn't read the fine print, and now I ain't paying you a yield. Now, maybe I'll pay you a yield next month, or maybe the month after, or maybe the month after that. I mean, it depends. It depends when I feel like paying you. But first and foremost, we got to shore up our balance sheet. And you know what all of the cult members will say. they'll probably come out and say, oh, this is a brilliant move by Michael Saylor, that he's just not paying us anymore, and that the principal, or that we bought it 100 cents on the dollar, and now we got cut in half, took a 50% haircut, and we're not getting paid the dividends. But oh my gosh, this is a brilliant move on Michael Saylor's part, because he's shoring up his balance sheet and he's reducing his liabilities, and therefore he's playing the long game. And sooner or later, when Bitcoin goes to $1 million, you know, we're all going to get rich. That's the level of, you know, like Stockholm syndrome, if that's what it is that these people have for Michael Saylor. So let's, in summary here, let me just try to streamline my thought process. You've got strategy, that equity tanking, because a lot of
unhooking the other phone because CarPlay is being stupid, and I don't actually watch CarPlay because I got the phones mounted to the dash, and it was getting a little stupid with Google Maps. So sometimes I have to unplug the phone and then plug it back in. That way I can get back to watching the maps on the phone. Even though I know where I'm going, I'm getting off at exit 81. Which is 6.6 miles to go. Getting a little hungry. Get some gas. Got 106 miles to my destination. Hell, I probably could actually make it to my destination without stopping for gas, but I don't want to stop for gas because then I can get some food out of the van, the fridge in the van. The stream's still going. Under the status window, I guess, or YouTube Live control panel, I'm using OBS. Sometimes I get warnings and errors there, but it seems like the stream's going. I'm gonna let it run all the way until I get right to my destination. Then I'll hit stop. Then when I'm done working, I'll start a new one for the drive home. I've stopped at that Love's before. Kind of hard to get in and out of. It's not horrible, but yeah. Exit 81, 3 miles, Sugar Hill Road. which is like a half mile past a rest area that's up here, which I think I've actually stopped at that rest area before. Took the microphone off the seat belt, clipped it to my shirt. Cop just went flying by. Then a truck. Not me, not the same direction. He was going the opposite way. Left lane closed ahead. Yeah, been to this one before too. But this one's easy to get in and out of. Well, I'll park behind the Subaru. Stream's still live. At least it seems like it is. Oh. Wow, gas is $3.17. Grab myself my eggs. Mm-hmm. I'm hungry. Yeah, had to walk in front of the camera. Only took 7 gallons. I think that means I still had probably 5 in there. Really? Stupid receipt didn't print out. I'm not gonna take you inside with me though. Well, back it in over here. Did you miss me? Do you see anything interesting? All right, back on the road. Hour, 38 minutes, 99 miles. Pre-cooked some scrambled eggs, omelet, cut it in little bites with some jalapenos, some cheese. I've eaten them cold. They're good. I like it. I don't think I'll make breakfast for tomorrow's trip though, because tomorrow's trip isn't as long. It's not all day. Still be about total trip about 5 or 6 hours, but it's only about 2 hours down to the customer, hour-ish so at the customer, and then 2 hours back, and I get to stop at Buc-ee's. Just chilling in the slow lane for now while I'm eating. That way I don't have to worry about passing cars or cars behind me. I considered after I was done here in Franklin, go ahead and just drive back to Aiken, South Carolina. Because my coworker was coming up from Florida, but that got canceled. So, nothing really there to go do now. I'll come up and do this job and go back home. Now I'm going to go around this truck. That last little bite had a little heat in it. Good stuff. Excuse me. Excuse me again. And a third time. Yeah, I got nothing to say. I have lots of things to say, but nothing to really care about right now. Time to start climbing the mountain. I think. Yeah, that's the spot where you start climbing up into Asheville. This Speedify thing seems to work pretty well. Bonding these two internet connections together across both cell phones. Stream says it's still going. But I'm now getting that error YouTube for the control panel, but I don't think that part matters as much. Still want to get a Starlink, because I think that's going to be a better solution. Wouldn't be surprised if the stream's kind of puttering out a little bit. It's a Verizon cell phone and an AT&T cell phone. Now back to excellent. Almost at the top, I think. No, not yet. A few more turns. Now we're at the top. Or at least the top of that climb. Come on. Phil's Barbecue Pit. I wonder who Phil is. Oh, you're gonna be a cock blocking motherfucker. Give you the finger. He sped up purposely so I couldn't go around that truck and I had to wait for him. Richard Petty Bridge. mountain lawn treat. That's what happens when you start raw dogging a drive. You just start randomly talking to yourself. It's funny how the term raw dogging a flight or a drive or a trip is basically no podcast, no radio, no headphones, nothing. Just sitting there in silence. Raw dogging is not what it meant before. 108 miles to Buc-ee's, but I'm not going to that one. That's in Sevierville, right outside of Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. If I had to keep going that way, once I get past this turnoff I've got to do, I think it's 74 I'm getting on. It's where you get into the damage on Interstate 40 that Hurricane Helene caused. Knocked out a couple of the lanes. It's like it was 2 lanes each way. Now it's only 1 lane each way, which really sucks. It makes it slow. There's another reason to get another laptop, because this tablet actually works pretty good for running the stream, but then if I want to leave it running overnight while I'm sitting at a hotel or something, which I probably wouldn't do, but I don't know, might be kind of interesting. I'd need another laptop to go inside and chill out, watch some YouTube while I'm getting ready to go to bed to get to the next day. And I'd need the satellite connection to stay in here, because the phones will go with me into the hotel room, because they're also my alarm clocks. Caught the groove. Missed a phone call. Oh no, that was just the voicemail. truck. I don't even think I'm going to bother muting the phone call. I don't think it really matters. Nobody's watching anyways. I'm not going to be saying anything bad. Kevin, it's Lauren. It's Monday, 10:30 Eastern. I don't remember what your voicemail was about. Something, I think, power steering. Is it a Journeyman? It gets its own power from the DC converter. It's got its own separate harness. There's a blue plug off the DC converter. Check the fuse there. Make sure it's not unplugged. Make sure you get power all the way to the front of the vehicle where it plugs into the ECU. If power seems good, most likely the ECU failed, and we normally replace the ECU and the motor at the same time. I'll be in the car for another hour, and then at a dealer for about an hour, and then back on the road again this afternoon, so give me a holler if you need to. Bye. I called on Friday and I was wiped. I just finished driving all the way home from the location I'm going to now in Franklin. And I told him to send an email to the tech support email and I would reply to him before this morning, but he never did. So I called him and left him a message. Lauren. Well, Scott, did you listen to my voicemail or just call me back? Yeah, but if you're talking about the fuses that are in the little fuse box that is attached to the body, that's not the one I'm talking about. It's its own fuse on the same feed that has that blue plug on it. Yeah, because if you get power going all the way to the ECU, then most likely it's an ECU/motor problem. You can get away with trying the ECU first. We always recommend doing both. Why? I don't know, because that's what I was told. But yeah. because they're not technically matched sets. You know, they're not paired with each other. Just, I think it actually comes as a kit. If you've got another Journeyman there, you know, just, I think the Journeyman's is what you got. Just grab an ECU off another one, swap it, see what happens. Yeah, good. It's an easy swap. You just got to reach your hands up there. There's 2 bolts that hold it in place and 3 plugs. Swap it out, put the other one on, and see if it works. Cool. Did you ever send an email or no? Because I never got it. Yeah, you're just gonna have to. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's the iPhone thing. Just type the email address in next time you want to do it. Yeah, just tech support at columbiausa.com. Cool. You got it. Now, if you do figure out what you need, remember, we can't order parts on the tech side. You got to go through the customer client care. Just call the main phone number on the website. Cool. All right, sounds good. Awesome. You got it. Bye. Well, I guess you can listen into another phone call. I was on the phone and staring out the windshield. What's going on? Vaguely. All I remember is I put your name in there, and I think you're with Brody Toyota Lift. You're down in Atlanta, right? Or down in Georgia somewhere? Okay, way off. Sort of. I really don't remember. I couldn't tell you what I did Friday, except for I drove home from where I'm driving back for 5 hours one direction. So the car arrived, but you said basically if you give it too much throttle, your car shuts down. You got to cycle the key and turn it back on. Yeah. Did I tell you about? I saw one similar. We tried 3 different speed sensors and it didn't work, and the only other solution was replace the motor. And then they actually pulled the motor. Yeah. Because we were thinking maybe a broken, ring, the ring that the sensor detects. But that one, you couldn't, same thing, they couldn't see any problems with it. And how I figured it out is luckily I was at a spot where they had a spare car. So I swapped motors, and the problem went away. So they shipped that motor off to engineering, and they put it on a run-out gauge. And it was just ever so slight that it caused a problem. Not enough you could see with your eyeball, but enough that the computer didn't like it. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So unfortunately, I think that's where you're stuck at, because if you've tried multiple speed sensors, or the original one and a new one, you could try a second one, but I haven't heard of those coming bad from the factory in a long time. I mean, it was a couple years ago. I think they had a bad batch, but that's a couple years ago. Yeah, that's probably just an order. I mean, I don't think it would be any way to tell how old it is, except for like a serial number, and that's not something even I would have access to. Exactly. Yeah. How old's this car? Yeah. Shouldn't, but was it a Journeyman or a util truck? Yeah, it's probably a Journeyman. Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah. That's going to be a tough one. I mean, if I was there and I had two different vehicles, I would hate to do it, and I hate doing it the last time because they're so freaking heavy, and you got to put it on a lift and then use like a hoist to actually, you know, get the motor out. But I would swap a motor just to make sure, but you might not even have the ability to do that or have another motor you could try. Right. Yeah. The price wise, I don't know, but I know they're not cheap. Yeah, it's a tough one. No, yeah, we don't even order parts on our end. And even finding part numbers is sometimes hard because we don't have all the access. When we need parts, we're calling it in the same way everybody else does. Except sometimes I'm sending an email instead of a phone call, but still the same idea. Hey, here's my VIN, I need this part number, or I need this car. If I don't know the part number, I need this part. And then they go and find it. Yeah, sure. Who was the person? Brandy, probably? Did the order also say the same part number they sent you? Oh, that's right, because, yeah. Because that would be my question, is either A, it's either one of two problems. One, they ordered the wrong part and sent you the wrong part, or B, they ordered you the right part, but the parts, shipping department pulled the wrong part off the shelf. Yeah. I don't have anything else to tell you. You could try a second one. If the parts guy, I don't even remember the ticket number we talked on, but if you find it in your email, you can tell your parts guy to return that one, that it didn't work, and that you talked to tech and said, get another one and try another one, because it's a cheaper swap than, ordering a motor. Yeah. Yeah. That's a tough one. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, the tone ring doesn't come separate. It's part of the motor itself. Or it's press fit on the shaft or something. I don't remember. It's been a couple years since I pulled one apart, but when I was doing it, yeah. Yeah. Exactly. You're still in the same exact boat. Yeah. If you have any cars that are Journeymans, doesn't matter if it's a 2XL or a 4XL or anything that says Journeyman on it, you technically can swap motor to motor. Yeah. The sit-down one or the stand-up one? Yeah, that's an Expediter. Yeah. Oh, you're coming over. Go ahead, Mr. Truck. Sorry. Expeditors still have it's got a different controller. It's either aluminum with a blue top, which is a Sevcon, or it's a green one, which is Navitas. But the motor's probably a little smaller, yeah. Yeah, I wish I'd had something else for you, but you could try, sending it back, and you can tell parts that you guys called tech support and we told you to send it back because it might be bad, or not working for that car, and that way they can get out of the 20% restocking fee and get another one. But if even another one doesn't do it, then yeah, you probably got a motor. Yeah, sucks. Yeah. Might as well hold on to the speed sensor just in case, and if you're going to do the motor, might as well put a new speed sensor so they're both new. Yeah. Cool. All right, dude. You're welcome. Have a good day. All right, man. Thank you. Bye. Yeah, I was also thinking, you don't have the diagnostic software and adapter to plug into the car, do you? Oh, you do? And when we talked originally, did I ask you to see if you actually were getting any errors, get a fault? See if you, because the only thing I'm thinking, it's probably still a motor, but if you'd have to drive the car, let it fault out, but don't cycle the key switch, because if you cycle the key switch, you'll lose the active fault, and then get the active fault. I don't think it's a throttle, but I'd be curious what the actual, because I don't remember if you'd sent me that before. Did we look at? Okay. Oh, okay, I remember this call a little bit. You were looking at the wrong spot because you were trying to look at the, okay, and then I had you go into local I/O monitor so we could see that was actually, foot switch 1 was activated, and then we're getting throttle voltage, okay. Man, that's a tough one. Yeah, the only thing left really is the ring that the sensor reads. And I've seen it before, and that's the hard part. It just sucks that it's a motor. Yep. Tell me about it. All right. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. I got another 50 minutes that I'm driving, and then I'll be stuck at a dealer for a little bit, and then I'll be 5-hour drive home. Yeah, and I was already here on Friday anyways, and they didn't tell me of a second car they wanted me to help with, and they didn't have a charger I could use, so I had to go home, spend the weekend, and come back. Yeah. Yeah, I don't hate the drive too much, so it's not really the end of the world. It's just more annoying. It's like, if you could have warned me ahead of time, I would have brought the other tools I need. I just didn't bring them because yeah, well, I had my van packed full of parts from the last job I was at, so I was, limited on room. But I could have made room to bring that charger. But yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, cool. Yeah, text them to me. I'm curious. All right, sounds good. Cool. Bye. Well, the stream's still going. I know I haven't missed my turn off, but for some reason it feels like I did, but I know I haven't. Probably because I haven't driven this way since minimum December, when we all came out to Asheville to go see the Biltmore, which, have I passed it? I don't think I passed it yet. No. I know I didn't miss my turn. I think I'm going to mute y'all. Getting a little warm out there. I think I'll even turn the microphone off. That way you can charge. miles around. I talked to him a couple of hours ago. Okay, cool. Ah. Minutes to go. Kind of cool. The stream's still live. I don't have the mic hooked up, so I don't know how well my voice is coming through right now. Because it is loud in the van. Very loud. Or at least somewhat loud. I'm on Highway 23, which was south of 74, which came off of Interstate 40. I don't even know what town I'm in right now. Haywood, maybe? Outside of Balsam? Balsam? We see your spark, America. Andy. My name is Lauren from Columbia Vehicle. I'm driving and reading an email, and I'm trying to figure out what they're asking me, so I'm calling you because I think I understand. I read your email. Now, going into this very blind, I've never put axle shafts in a stock chaser, but I'm assuming the thing you're talking about with the threads being shorter, you're talking about the wheel studs. Oh, okay. Right. Yeah, I don't know what to go on that one. Just normally, most of the questions I usually get, it's like most of the times usually they just tell people to replace the whole entire axle assembly. So I've never pulled one of those apart. So, which is fine. What I would do is, I'm taking a wild ass guess here, but I'm wondering, I don't even know if this is possible. I'm trying to make sure I don't get anything here too. To have him, if he still has the original axles out and the new axles out, to kind of put them next to each other and get a picture of it, because my first initial guess, did we get the wrong parts? Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah, we're all playing man in the middle here on this one. So yeah, I think what we're gonna have to do is wait for the customer who has the parts to send you pictures, get those back to Brandy, and they'll probably have to go pull them off the shelf and go compare. Yeah. Yeah, the hard part is I mean, yeah, you can rebuild those things, but most of the time I see people just replacing the whole entire rear end axle, brake hub to brake hub. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't even work in the factory myself to get build pull parts myself. I mean, I'm there once a while, but like once a month. Yeah. So I wish I could help you with more, but right now you're kind of waiting for him to get you pictures, and he's probably going, "Fuck this, I'm walking away from it for the rest of the week." Yeah. Okay. I'll tell him. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right. All right. You're welcome. All right. Yeah. Have a good morning. Bye. thought I had missed a turn, but I didn't. Or maybe I did. And no, I don't think I did. Seems normal. I haven't driven this way to this customer probably a year. Yeah, I was here on Friday, but I didn't come this way. I didn't come from home. This seems right. Seems weird, but it seems right. Yeah. It's kind of cool that this stream's still connected. At least it says it's connected. Yeah, I've been this way. It's normal. I think once you get up over this thing drops down pretty significant downgrade. You gotta keep it slow. Yeah, 'cause there's the 8% grade warning. No, definitely going the right way. I will be stopping the stream a couple of minutes before I get there. 22 minutes to go. Degrees. think I can. I think I can. I think I can. So much for today being a quiet work day on the phones. While I drive 5 hours one direction, 5 hours another direction. But I'm only 6 minutes away from my final destination. Getting off at 4:41 business for Franklin. And I'll let you see a little bit about it. Discover us, Franklin. I'll stop the stream once I make a left on Depot Street. Excuse me. I guess this is downtown Franklin. It's got a McDonald's. There's actually stuff down the way down there, but I don't think I'll be going there. We're crossing the Little Tennessee River. The David E. Henson Bridge. Big Bear Lane. I'm turning left up here. Well, stream's still active, so that is a good thing. This worked out pretty well. Still want a satellite. But I'll worry about that later. And thank you for joining in.